Let's focus on Mozambique. It is still unclear as to whether the South African government will send soldiers to Mozambique to help the country deal with the insurgency in the north, which has been going on for years now. As rebels fight for control of the strategic northern town of Palma in Cabo Delgado, this is the province of Cabo Delgado, militias have been shooting at civilians, dropping bombs, beheading people and killing indiscriminately. Meanwhile, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation says it is working with local authorities to locate, identify and assist frustrated expats and families who say they have been left to fend for themselves during attacks. Well, joining us now to discuss this issue, we've got with us Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, who is the Bishop of the Ethiopian Episcopal Church and General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, and also Zenaida Machado, who is from Human Rights Watch in Maputo. It's good to have you. Thank you very much, both of you, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Zenaida, let me begin with you. What is the situation like at the moment?
Good morning, everybody. The last update I had was last night, just before we closed the day to go for a rest. And that was that several journalists, about 10 or 11, had an opportunity to fly over Palma in helicopters of the army forces. And the feedback they gave was that the town is completely deserted. It's very militarized. Soldiers are everywhere. That there are still sporadic gunfire, in some cases coming from hideouts of the gunmen, and in other cases coming from the soldiers themselves. There are lots of focus of firing, but that's a bit normal because that's how this group operates. They arrive in villages and set other people's properties on fire, which actually constitutes a serious war crime and human rights violation. We also understand at this stage that several people are still unaccounted for. Outside Pemba port, where most of the rescued people are being taken to, there are several families still are waiting to hear about their relatives who are in Palma. Some in Palma, some still have the hope that maybe in one of the boats that will dock at the port, their relatives will come out and safe. But many have also lost hope based on experience from other conflicts. There are also people in Pemba who have arrived in the capital of Cabo Delgado. Yeah. But they've been walking since Wednesday, and the information they are giving us is that there are lots of people that are left back in Palma, especially at the beach. They found ways of hiding at the beach while they wait for boats to carry them to safety.
You know, this is it's a hard one to discuss because I suppose there's so many questions around, you know, what is at the heart of all of it? Is this a fight about religion? Is it about gas? Or is it about both? Perhaps, Zenaida, you want to take this, and Bishop, if you'd like to add your voice, you're more than welcome. But Zenaida, if you'd like to just perhaps give us some clarity on that.
I think it's a mix of all of it. You can't isolate each one of the factors because each one of the factors is somewhere else in Mozambique. And we haven't seen this type of events in other places of the country. I think Cabo Delgado itself combines all of those things. There is the element of religion, where this group clearly has shown to be very good at recruiting at. There is the element of religious ideology that they are using to convince people to remain with them. Then there is the ISIS link that recently has been claimed. There is the element of a huge group of young people not having access to wealth, not having access to jobs, and therefore being an easy target for recruitment. But there is also the element of discontent from local populations when they see expats arriving, making more money than them, or, for example, when they see their land being taken to give room to all those big multinationals. So if I were to be cautious, I wouldn't exclude any of the factors, I would say that Cabo Delgado, unfortunately, combines all together and creates this kind of explosive environment that we have seen in the past 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, violence really did intensify towards the end of last week. I mean, and over this particular weekend, although this has been going on for years, a lot of people have been evacuated. You've given us an update on the current situation. But Bishop, from your understanding, what is it that you're hearing on the ground?
We work closely with the Mozambican Christian Council, which has been extremely concerned about all the elements that Zenaida has referred to, including the human rights violations. And also the fact that it doesn't look like the government of Mozambique has engaged this with the urgency that they believe, or that some of us believe is required. For example, if there are conditions that make it place fertile for the insurgency, the government ought to deal with those conditions, conditions of poverty, and the way in which the development agenda is engaged. It ought to take seriously into account the needs and concerns of local people. And if that doesn't happen, no amount of military strength is going to make a difference. And so we believe that there has to be a combination of things that go into it. But also, if there is a prospect of ISIS being involved, then we should know that it's not going to be just Cabo Delgado, it will be the rest of Mozambique, it will be in the rest of the region. There will be more and more of that kind of quest for a caliphate. And that's not going to end there. So it does not help for the region to say it's a Mozambican problem, or for Mozambique to say it's a provincial problem. I think everybody should come into it seriously and engage on all solutions. But above all, we must make sure that the people on the ground believe there is a future outside of relying on the insurgents.
Yeah, and the reality is at the moment, I think it is very difficult for them to see that. I mean, we've even heard news of Total has announced that they would restart work on the $20 billion project, which had to be stopped in January over security concerns. And as Zenaida was saying, you know, it's very, very much so the opportunities that are not there, that it's a very difficult time for people living in this area, and obviously insurgents coming in, whatever it may be, causing such acts of violence is just making the situation worse. So, if so, what action should they take now, and is there any assistance coming from the French government? Zenaida, if you'd like to step in there.
What we know from the ground in terms of what has been happening in Palma since Wednesday is that Total, which is the main investor in the region, is working with the Mozambican authorities to evacuate people. Unfortunately, that evacuation has not covered the majority of population of Palma. It has at this stage covered most of the Total employees and most of the other workers that were working in the oil industry and services around the region. So we are talking about 1,300 people that have been initially lifted from Palma to the Afungi complex of Total, and then from the Afungi complex to Pemba by a boat that was hired by Total in Tanzania to carry people to safety. And our understanding is that once the boat arrived in Pemba, people were screened, fed, and taken to safe locations at their own choice. But 1,300 people, it's still way below the population of Palma. You will remember that Palma wasn't just a place for expats and other workers in the oil industry. It was also a refuge for those who had been attacked in the village surrounding Palma. A lot of people in the past week have been moving to Palma, especially because from January, convoys with food have arrived in Palma for the first time. So people, including some members of this government, have been going to Palma to seek not only for safety, but also for food and other supplements.
We've been looking at this situation and reporting on it, albeit perhaps not focusing in on it enough. But from as far back as 2016, 2017, I mean, bishop rape, abduction, beheadings, people being used as sex slaves in rebel camps. You know, I've seen reports from the UNHCR, a lot of it from human rights organizations talking about this. Why is it taking so long that suddenly, and many people being very critical, that suddenly now that the narrative has changed more towards British citizens, French citizens, South African citizens that are being affected, it's now making headlines, whereas before it just carried on going and nobody seemed to worry too much about it?
It is a question of poor people not having any identity, not people caring for the human rights of poor people. It's been happening, and not only that, we have also come to understand that even the military, when they come, they act in I don't know if Zenaida can confirm this. They act in a hostile manner towards the villages that they believe are harboring insurgents, which does not help to change the minds of those people, because then it sort of says the government is the enemy. And I think that also it's been said that the government of Mozambique has been unwilling to let other governments in the region get involved. And I think the reason why the expats are being taken care of is because their governments, maybe the voices of their government comes across more loudly than the voice of ordinary people in the country.
And that is obviously a big problem. But if we go and have a look at the role of the Dyke Advisory Group, Bishop, which was actually hired by the Mozambican government as security specialists, especially in the face of allegations that they also committed some of the atrocities and indiscriminate bombings of schools and hospitals as they were quelling the violence by insurgents. What's happening there?
Well, it's not only that. I understand, again, Zenaida can confirm this, but we also hear that even the boats that are leaving Palma do get sunk by soldiers who believe that some insurgents are in the boats or their sympathizers are in the boats. It all is about saying we need a different strategy, a strategy that says the safety and the future of Cabo Delgado depends on a good relationship between the people of the province and their government in the country. And that whatever is done by outsiders must be to support, strengthen, and make that work, particularly because, if for no other reason, let's just say for selfish reasons, we do need the Mozambican economy to flourish in order for the region to flourish. We do need the Mozambican gas fields to be up and running in order for the gas supplies in the region to flourish. This is important for everyone. It's not just for French or Total, it's also for the rest of us. But the people of Cabo Delgado must believe that this is their future as well.
Yeah. So, Zenaida, let's sort of get a follow-up from you, and a lot of the bishop also throwing a couple of things to you, because I think you have a lot of facts from being there on the ground. But what I want to ask you as well is it too little too late from SADC? I mean, the Troika meeting comes after calls to SADC in November last year already for the SADC organ on politics, defense and security to convene an urgent meeting and come up with a crisis response plan on the Mozambican crisis. Now, I mean, at that time, 50 people had already been beheaded. What has since been done by the SADC heads? What are they doing?
I want to avoid using the term too little, too late, because I still believe that SADC has the opportunity to surprise everybody. And by surprising, I'm saying they have the opportunity to announce something that is better than what the Americans have announced or what the European Union has announced. Otherwise, it will be a huge embarrassment for the region that a problem that has been here, it was first known by SADC, is being resolved by Americans, French, and the European Union. That's one point. On the other issue is that we have to always remember that in this conflict of 3 years, and I'm not dismissing the number of foreigners that might have died in the conflict in Palma, but I want people not to forget that 1,500 people, Mozambicans, have died in the past 3 years. The good thing about the events in Palma is that it finally managed to get the attention of the international community. And hopefully this attention will create some sort of networks and pressure on the Mozambican government, not only to step up on their game to improve the lives of those who have been displaced, and I'm talking about 500,000 people displaced, but also in respecting the human rights of those that are still in the areas of conflict. And again, also in assuring that the help that people need arrives. As I speak, there are lots of international organizations that are waiting for humanitarian visas to go to Mozambique and help those in need. So I hope what is in the news since Wednesday will create a serious embarrassment on the Mozambican government and the need for them to change the approach they have to this war. The Mozambican people are not the enemy of the Mozambican state. They are in need, and it's not just a right that they have as citizens, but also an obligation of the government to help them and provide for them the basic things: shelter, food, ensure security, and most important of all, ensure that people are able to return to their house. This idea that people can be definitely resettled in other areas that is not their own, I found that appalling. People left land in Palma. People left land in Afungi. People left land in Mocimboa da Praia. You cannot ask somebody who had hectares of land to go back to another province and have a small size of land of 30 by 15 meters, where you expect them to do agriculture, fishing, and everything else they used to do in the past. So all these things that are happening now, I hope result in changes on the way Mozambican government is approaching this conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. You said it so well. Almost it got us to smile at this point. Is that you don't want to say it's too little, too late, but you want to say let them actually show up. It's not too late, and that's not the way you should handle these situations. Bishop, I leave the final word with you. I mean, you've collected information. What does it say about the perpetrator groups involved? Because there are views that it's not only the rebels who are behind these attacks, but as we heard at the beginning of the interview from Zenaida, internal disgruntlements by Mozambican themselves against the government, and some are not working and feel that their minerals are extracted and are not being benefited. I mean, is that something you can confirm?
Absolutely, yes. That's what we're hearing. But once we're hearing that, it's also on the Tanzanian side. And so part of the solution has to do with a partnership between the government of Mozambique and the government of Tanzania, at least as far as the border area is concerned. We have been working with hearing from the Christian Council of Tanzania as well, which has got churches and congregations in the border area. And they have been concerned that some of the people have actually crossed over from their side. And so there has to be something that's why it's a SADC issue, that you should have both governments accompanied by the region to make sure that everything that is there. And I would actually say that if a development agenda can combine southern Tanzania and northern Mozambique in a way that benefits, or it's really about regional economic integration. SADC is supposed to be an economic region of the continent. But there's nothing economic about it. Everything is just political. We have to look at what are the economic benefits that we can create that make sure even the issues of xenophobia are dealt with if we have got economic integration.
Bishop, thank you. Zenaida, thank you very, very much. We've got to leave it there. A very difficult situation in Mozambique at the moment, but thanks very much for your input and giving us some perspective of what is possibly happening on the ground. And that's unfortunately where we have to leave the program this morning. It's already like a couple of seconds before 9 o'clock.
Indeed it is. So that's where we have to leave it. Time is up. But